So let's do an example. All right, here I have a river, and let's say this is a river in Maryland, and it's a pristine river, and the Clean Water Act just came out, and the states have to look at all their water bodies and set a water quality standard. So first step, a water quality standard. And the state looks at everything, and they're like, you know what? We don't use it for drinking water. Kids don't really swim in it. Really, the only time people are in it is to go fishing. So their standard is like, okay, this stream has to be good enough that we can fish in, because that's what people are doing here. Oh goodness, okay. Those are all fish. So that was the first thing. Now, because they chose fishing as their main water quality standard, the EPA already set up, well, if you're having fishing, you need to look at all these different pollutants. So you have to look at mercury. Okay, we looked at mercury and it was under the level that the EPA said. You have to look at, I don't know, nitrogen. All right, we looked at the limit that EPA set for fishing. We meet it. Lead. All right, this is what the EPA says it should be. We'll measure it. Oh, actually, not so good. It's actually much higher than what the EPA said. So that was step 2, is essentially figuring out if your waters are impaired. In this case, they are. We looked at all of these pollutants and we found actually we're not meeting our standards. We are calling this an impaired waterway. Now, because it's an impaired waterway, we need to come up with an action plan, and that's step 3. And step 3 is that TMDL, that total maximum daily load. We're doing fine on mercury, we're doing fine on nitrogen, but apparently lead is too high. We need to do something about that. But we also realize we're going to have to release lead. If we want light bulbs, lead is going to be released. If we want this fertilizer company, we want lead to be released. So we realize lead's going to have to be released. We can't just say, nope, no lead. But we also know the environment does break down lead. The environment breaks down a lot of pollutants. So we just need to put a limit on it, and that's what the TMDL is. So through lots of scientific research, we determined that the best limit would be 10 pounds of lead. So what this means is that in a day, in an hour, in a year, in whatever that gets described, only 10 pounds can be released. And we're going to use a month. So 10 pounds a month can be released by the industries that partake in this region. Now let's say there's a couple of industries, but they left, and we're starting with a clean canvas. So this new industry comes in. They're like, oh, hey, we have the XYZ pollutant. We do release lead, and we estimate that we're going to release about 5 pounds of lead a month. Is that okay? And they'll ask that to Maryland, and Maryland will be like, you know what? That's fine. We haven't hit our 10-pound limit yet. You've got 5. You're the only one here. You've requested it. Bam, you can release 5. And all companies have to do this. All companies have to get an NPDES if they plan on releasing any kind of pollution. Montgomery College even has an NPDES for when we drain out the pools. Then another company comes, and the other company's like, hey, we release lead. We don't release that much, about 3 pounds a month. And they go apply for their permit, and Maryland's like, yep, that's fine. We haven't hit our threshold yet. We're not there yet, so you're good. Awesome. Third company comes in. Third company's like, hey, Joe down the street, he also releases 5. We want to release 5 as well. We make this really awesome car, and we have to get rid of lead into the environment. So they go apply for a permit, go to Maryland, and Maryland says, actually, no. Our limit of lead in this water stream is 10. And you have a couple options. You can either A, do some sort of different manufacturing process where you release less lead, or 2, or B, whatever I was using, you don't come here. Like, your permit's denied as is. And it would be up to this company. He could be like, well, see ya. He goes somewhere else because maybe they can't reduce their amount of lead. But the point of it is just to protect the amount of pollutants going into that water body. We accept that some will be released. That is the nature of industry. But if we can at least limit it and give nature a chance to break it down, we can maintain this fishing standard. And we can make it so that these fish are safe enough and healthy enough for us to catch them and consume them. So it's pretty much how the Clean Water Act worked in a nutshell. So before, I said that this is very specific to the company. As you can see, the different companies have different permits, but it's also different for the water body. If this was a drinking water body, this TMDL might be 1 pound of lead. So it's not a basic standard for the entire United States. It is very individualized based on lots of scientific data collected by individual agencies. So again, just as a recap, all those places had to get a permit. They were going to release pollution into the environment, but in order to do so, they have to get a permit. And it's going to vary between the company and the water body. So what exactly do you need to put on your permit? What do you have to ask for? Well, the most obvious one, and the one we used in our example, are chemicals. There's hundreds of different chemicals that are listed on the Clean Water Act that have to be reported on an MPDES. So essentially any heavy metal, such as mercury and lead, or copper, or really any of the metals that you can think of, these can be pretty toxic to the environment. So if you're a company that wants to release a chemical into the environment, you've got to let us know. You've got to let the government know, and they'll let you know, yeah, that's okay, or you're going to have to cut back because we already have a lot in that water body. So that's kind of the obvious one. But the Clean Water Act protects a lot more than just those run-of-the-mill chemicals. It protects our water bodies from things like sediment. So you've probably seen this before in your neighborhood where there's a whole bunch of dirt trying to go down the storm drain. Well, that storm drain just enters a water body. So it enters that storm drain and goes into a river, and now it makes it really, really cloudy. It makes it harder for organisms to see and for organisms to find their food or to avoid being attacked, and it makes it harder for plants to photosynthesize. So if you are a, say, construction site, you actually have to get an MPDES for your dirt to make sure that it's not washing away. You may have seen these, especially these black fences around construction sites. The whole purpose for them is literally to hold in the dirt to make sure that it's not washing away. You may also see these over storm drains, where it's covering a majority of it except the top, where water could then go through. If you are ever out and you see one of these fences actually broken or down or anything, definitely call your local government officials because that's actually breaking their permit. And I know you don't want to be like the snitch, but it's for our environment, our shared environment. And all they have to do is just fix it. So that's why you see those, is really because their MPDES permit said, hey, if you're going to be creating sediment, you're going to need to actually prevent it from entering the ecosystem. Another thing that gets monitored are nutrients. So nutrients such as phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen can cause algae blooms like you see in this picture, which can have a lot of negative consequences on our environment. Those nutrients are coming from a lot of things. So for example, food. Now, you eat the food, but think about food waste. If you're putting things down your garbage disposal, well, all the nutrients in that food has to go somewhere, and it went down with all the rest of your water from the sink. Things like human waste. So our pee and our poop has lots of nutrients in it. Our soaps have a lot of phosphorus in it, whether it's laundry detergent like this or dish detergent, all of those have nutrients in it. And again, Clean Water Act is trying to prevent this kind of pollution. So this is found on MPDES permits.